Okay, and we're starting, and we have you right from the start, Nate. So take us away.
I have a new greeting.
Oh, you do?
Hello, Pebbles across all platforms. Welcome to the Idiots Podcast episode 51.
All right.
Today?
Yep. Let me show off what is for lunch today. What is for lunch today, as you observed, pigs in a blanket with a smokehouse onion and cheddar sauce. Sort of a dip we found at the winter fair during Christmas last month, and it is an amazing dip. Mm. Mm-mm-mm.
Hmm,
Very rich, very zesty, very tasty. Mm.
huh.
So, today's topic is, as we discussed time and sort of our perception of it. There's this video by this channel I used to watch called Vsauce, where the guy there talked about, perceptions of time and everything, and how exactly, we perceive time, and how when we're a little kid, right, and your mom puts you in timeout for breaking something or doing something bad, you know, in 15 minutes, that's forever, because you're 5 years old and 15 minutes represents a larger portion of your life. So for you, your perception of it at the time, 15 minutes feels like 3 hours.
I
You know?
actually explained it to Andy before you came, like
Oh
something
yeah,
similar.
right. But this is for people listening. So like 15 minutes feels
Mhm.
like 3 hours when you're five. Nowadays 15 minutes, that's nothing. When you're, you know, in your early, God, approaching mid 30s like me, 15 minutes feels practically like 15 seconds. It feels like nothing.
He does.
Which is why, when you get older, you can tolerate waiting for Christmas and birthdays for things, because you're just like, yeah, that's my birthday is actually literally just 1 month away. So it's like, yeah, I can I can wait for my birthday for things now.
Hmm.
But Nate, this was
Yeah.
your suggestion. Do you have any other like comments on time and everything?
Well, mainly because the other thing then of course this type of time perception dilation distortion. No, I don't know the word in English nor Czech right now proper. But yeah, aside from this topic, I wanted to inquire about how do you perceive time on and more of an individual path. Like again, I will repeat what I kind of started with Andy before. If you are technically aware of each second that passes, or if you space out and suddenly it's 3 hours later or even a week later. And one other mini topic, I guess, is
Hmm.
if you view time as something that you travel through or something that travels through and around you.
Mm-hmm. Um, I kind of view it as something we kind of travel through, but at the same time also passes through us. I mean, Andy, what would you say is your thought on it? Yeah.
Yeah, what's your perception then? This is about sharing our opinion, how we view it.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, because that's the other thing. Even when you get older, you know, you're you know, waiting to get a tooth extracted or something, or, you know, waiting for something you're not exactly looking forward to. You know, you're just sitting there kind of worried, checking the clock, time does pass a bit slower, but it's now officially agonizingly slower.
Wait, like
I guess
for
it
you
really all
or
depends on
like
your perception of it.
I mean, that's how
so
I feel about it.
so for you now, if like you are like waiting for something unpleasant, it's like
Mhm.
worse
Well, if
than
you
it
pay
was
attention,
when you were
well,
younger.
if you're sitting there waiting for something
It's actually
and you
like
pay attention to
that
the
feeling.
time,
It literally
What?
without
doesn't.
grabbing your
What
focus on
feeling?
anything else, it can feel like a long
When I
time. But
was
then when you're not, it
younger
feels like
and
it's
I didn't
passing by a
have
lot faster
things to as many
because you're
things
not
to
noticing
distract
it.
me, and I had to wait for something unpleasant, it
So
was
it's better.
agonizingly slow. And so
Yeah. And
these days,
now,
when it's the
well,
same thing, it's still a bit agonizingly slow. It does go a bit faster, but again, it still feels agonizingly slow.
all right.
But in a movie I introduced you to, Nate, Interstellar, what would be interesting is if, like Cooper,
Hmm.
we could interact with time fourth dimensionally.
Yeah.
And you really need to watch that movie at least once, Nate, because yes,
Yeah.
aside
I
from
should
the
when I have
Hans Zimmer
time.
soundtrack,
Oh yeah, I should put it on my list actually. Wait, like boom,
the science
boom,
in it is a
boom.
bit of a stretch. It's like, yeah, that's not exactly how that works, but it's still a pretty plausible concept, I would say. Like, Andy, have you seen that movie Interstellar? Andy? I, now I can, yeah. What'd you say?
Andy, if you like
Yeah.
Hans Zimmer or like like epic movie orchestral music, watch it just for that, as I will.
Um. Well, on top of this, it has a lot of really good effects and a really good story and really good performances. Again, Matthew McConaughey. There's this scene where he enters a black hole and effectively enters and interacts with time. He effectively can touch it and move it. Um,
That
and
reminds
the
me of
really,
something.
huh?
Finish your portion first, but then I have something that reminds me of.
Okay, but the Oscar winning scene is as he's inside this effectively tesseract of time.
Never seen
He's
it.
trying
Did you hear
to
me?
convince his daughter to convince himself in the past
Well, I said no.
to stay on Earth, and he's sitting there banging against these walls, going, "No, no, make me stay, Bert, make me stay, no!" And it's like it just tugs at your heartstrings because it's just like, oh my god, he's trying something that he knows is futile and isn't going to work, but the love for his daughter is just pushing him anyway, and it's both incredible, sad, and beautiful all at the same time. And again, Matthew really killed it in that scene. But
Mhm.
anyways, your thought, Nate?
This is no, I got reminded of like of Alan Becker's animation versus physics,
Mm-hmm.
where the second coming also enters like the black hole, and he reaches like singularity, and
Mm-hmm.
there is well basically another version of him that that is like looking down at what happened previously in the animation, and is like because previously like second coming receives for example like a rope above like from a point in the sky that's like a little glowy dot, and that little glowy
Right.
dot was the viewing window that also served as some kind of disc, but it wasn't really a disc. It was something from like, well, theoretical physics, from I don't know which scientist now. But basically, when he turned it, it travel. Like they could travel like, yeah, they traveled back in time, in there. And yeah, it was like one of the when I read about it, it was like one of the time travel methods. But yeah, actually, like singularity ties into time because it's actually a point in one's future and not one's space. So yeah.
Hmm.
And but yeah,
Well, sure.
that's like even that's black hole stuff. That's very
It's theoretical
uh
because the
yeah,
going
very
the going
physics
theory
stuff.
about what really happens when you enter a black hole is spaghettification. Basically, you just get stretched out to spaghetti because the gravity just crushes you and you die.
Well, you get stretched because the gravity pulling at one end of your body is stronger than the one at your other.
Mm-hmm.
So that is how. But then yeah, because like when you travel like I guess lower down or towards the core or just somewhere, basically towards singularity, you get smooshed because again the density of the object like is then increases the gravitational forces and yep,
Mm-hmm.
you cannot survive that.
Nope. You just die. But
Hmm.
one thing in terms of time and media that's always kind of intrigued me is how time travel really works, and what is the most solid theory about it? Because my opinion is that if time travel ever is possible, self-correcting is not a thing. I don't think time can self-correct. There is no just one timeline that constantly self-corrects because it would make no sense. It would be full of paradoxes that would make absolutely no sense whatsoever.
Hmm?
Like, for example, this is why the ending to Samurai Jack really kind of ticked me off, and why Jack was effectively robbed of a happy ending. He goes back in time and finally kills Aku. And because of that, technically speaking, if time is self correcting, then his love interest Ashi wouldn't exist. But that doesn't make any sense. He could only have gotten to the past because of her at all. So that would make it so that if she stopped existing, then he couldn't have done that and killed Aku. So that's a bunch of paradoxes all running
Yeah.
together. What makes more sense is that when he goes back in time, all that happens is that he creates an alternate timeline where he never left.
Hmm.
You
I think
know?
the only like point like where you could technically have like a self correction as you put it is when you would go like way back, and I mean way back for like yeah, I don't know, to the freaking Mesozoic era or something, and you know kill the rat that is gonna I don't know,
It's
that
called
is
butterfly
like
effect. Basically, the idea
yeah.
is if, like, you affect
No,
one
but
little change.
this particular rat
Yeah.
will eventually like you know have at least one gene like hmm, in your enemy or
Survive
something
humans,
like
and
that.
then all of a sudden we have a planet of rats that are effectively the intelligent of humans. But even then, I don't think that's self-correcting. You would still go back to your timeline that is ruled by humans, and there would just be a timeline that's ruled by rats.
I mean, that like depends on like the rules established by the story or something. But yeah,
Again, I just think self-correction when it comes to a time travel model, it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
mm,
It's just Well, theoretically,
you
and
know,
physically impossible.
But at least in the terms of time travel, we all are traveling steadily forward in time at the rate of 1 second per second.
Right. But what would be interesting if you can literally go back a half second and like, would that change anything?
Depends what
You know,
would you do.
yeah. And it's like, what exactly can you change in a half second?
Avoid biting your tongue when you're eating.
I guess. Or you could make yourself bite your tongue. You could travel back, pat yourself in the back of the head real quick, and then feel yourself as you bite your own tongue because of it. That would literally be the only way self-correcting works, is if it's too statistically insignificant to matter.
Um,
You know? That's the only way a self-correcting time travel model works.
I guess
Oh!
so. Hello.
Rabbit!
Yes, hi. Sorry.
With Cusco.
What?
Held up in traffic.
Oh,
Hey.
no, you're good. Here I thought, oh, okay,
Happens.
so it must be 2:30 for you right now.
Now it is, yes. Eastern.
Okay. So the topic today was time and our perception of it and everything. And I got onto the topic of like how time travel, models in fiction, some work, some don't. And my going theory is that alternate universe theory is the most accurate time travel model. Because again, self-correcting makes absolutely no sense. As well as we were talking about our general perception of time too. Ravid, where would you want to start unpacking all this? General perception, or like your thoughts on like different fictional mediums of time travel?
I've read a lot, and I dabbled in string for a tiny
Mhm.
bit. I wouldn't say I'm 100% on string theory, and it remains a theory for a reason with it. But time itself can be relative. So let's say you mentioned self-correcting. It would self-correct for the person who was traveling, but it would not self-correct for anyone else within that person's sphere of influence or existence.
Right.
So think of it like I've had this experience. So everyone here has flown on a plane, right?
Yep.
So the biggest example I personally have with time would be flying from the US and then taking multiple flights from the US to the whole other side of the world. And it took
Right.
me a little over a week to get my internal clock fixed. A straight week to do that. So time is crazy because time now you think about biologically. You have the human body can only take care of it so well. Then you have, I think it was 3-4 years ago, NASA, the Department of the Navy, and the Department of Health in the U.S. conducted an experiment with an active duty major and his twin brother, where they sent the active duty brother up into space for, I believe it was 9 months, 8 months or 9 months. And they brought him back while also monitoring all the biological signs of his twin here on Earth. And what they found was very interesting. Biologically, time passed far slower the further that the twin got out from Earth. That was already theorized because
Were they like identical twins
they
or
are identical
separate
twins.
eggs? Okay.
They were identical twins, and this is an actual experiment. The active duty major, I can pull his name up actually. The identical twin was an active duty pilot. Twin in space experiment. But this was a real experiment. Major Scott Kelly, and it was 340 days low Earth orbit aboard the ISS, while his identical twin, Mark Kelly, remained on Earth. And yeah, so you can look this up. The NASA.gov has it. Space Center in Houston has it. They
Wait, is it the same Mark Kelly I'm thinking of?
Mark Kelly? No, I doubt it. He's a retired astronaut.
Yeah, the Mark Kelly who's
American
currently the
politician.
senator of Arizona.
Oh yeah, he's a member of the Democrat Party. Wow, I did not know that was the same Mark Kelly. Yeah, so actually, it's the same people. I did not know that about him. So I just learned something. But they were researching that. So you have time as a construct for Earth, and then you have a time as a construct for the human body. So if you take all that information that we saw with the experiments, then you apply it to fiction, you of course have the classic Time Machine, the novel from the 1800s. And I think that has set the standard for time travel in and of itself, and everyone is built off of it. Someone has a issue, they decide, well, the only way to fix it is to go back in time or to run from it and go into the future. That has now devolved into now you have science where people want to freeze themselves if they have a disease that does not have a cure. So hoping in the future there will be a cure. It has spiraled into this entire thing. When I write my books, when it comes to time, I try to give you the impart that time is not just a very real thing that affects actions of others, but it is a factor that cannot be changed. It is like the gods. You cannot defy the gods. You cannot defy time. That's how I write it. None of my books at this time have delved into the idea of time travel, but it does show how time lines and how time affects many things. It affects how the human body works. It affects politics. It affects logistics. It affects the terrain. There's a line in The Hobbit. I was here before the greatest of mountains was a pebble, when the oceans were but mere rivers, so on and so forth. Or I may be thinking the Silmarillion.
Yeah, you're probably thinking the Silmarillion.
Yeah, Silmarillion, I believe, is actually that. But that's a whole other thing. Like you can give a character a lot of impart by saying, hey, this is how long I've been here. Because everyone knows what the world is like now. Like I see this mountain is hundreds of miles tall. But then you make them think that mountain at one time was so small. Or I have seen nations fall and rise and fall again. So you can give the repetition of time. There's a lot of different things. You can use time for a lot of different imparts. You can make characters seem older. You can make them seem wiser. You can make them seem more powerful. It's a very unique tool as an author that you have at your disposal.
Right. I mean, that does. Like, speaking of the Silmarillion, it kind of does make me wonder, like, if you were a being that could live thousands of years, like elves or like the Maiar, how does time end up being perceived for you at that point? When you are, 1,000 years old, and a year is like a blink for you at that point. How do you perceive that normally? At that point, it almost seems like it would be a disadvantage practically because everyone else is treating their time very preciously, but then you're just like,
I mean, you say everyone else, like, but like, that would only apply if, like, the long-living person would live in a society of mostly short, like, living people. But also, I guess, like, for the like, for the question, like, how do you perceive that? I think that at that time, at that point, a year wouldn't matter to you anymore. Like, you wouldn't. You would maybe consider a year like a month.
Yeah, like I hate to quote. Well, actually, I actually found the Hobbit movies quite fine. But Thranduil says to to Thorin, sit there and rot for all you like. I'm an elf. I'm patient. I can wait. 100 years is nothing to me,
Because now he's turned time into a weapon.
Yeah. And
And I agree.
that's
They did a
interesting.
fantastic job with the movies. And I think the best thing the movies did was it got people interested in the books.
Yeah. And again, I can understand people's criticism of like, I don't think the Hobbit movies are bad. Anyone who's saying that is, I think, are
You
just
want
being
bad? Go to the 1957 animated Hobbit.
Was it 57? I thought it was like 75.
Or 75. Yeah, I'm dyslexic. I flipped something. The 1975 animated Hobbit movies. Go to that. If you want bad, go to that. They're bad funny. I still have it on DVD and I love it. Where there's a whip, go there's a way.
But yeah, it's like I think these were just well done movies. They just don't measure up to the original Lord of the Rings trilogy. That's it.
That's
they're
where I'm
well done.
nervous about this animated The War of the Rohirrim. I'm nervous because
From
I'm
what I've seen,
familiar.
I like it.
I'm familiar with the story that I think it's believed. I believe it may be based on the children of Húrin and some of the lore coming from the Rohirrim. And I'm familiar with it. I'm not 100% on it because I haven't finished that book. But you mentioned, say, Perception of Time. Breaking away from Lord of the Rings, a great anime. I think the anime of animes that has nailed the perception of time for the long-lived races is Freyrin.
Oh, I've seen things from that anime.
100% watch it. If you like fantasy, and you like anime, if you're a fan of Lord of the Rings in general or the hero's adventure, Freyrin, to summarize without spoilers, the adventure is over. This is what happens after the adventure. And it follows Freyrin, who is the elf who knew the heroes. She knew the priest, she knew the swordsman, and she knew the warrior dwarf by name. Everyone else in the world knows the legends, the myths. They have stories from when they were in that village 80 years ago, when the Dark Lord was there. But Freyrin knows the truth. And it's not that the truth is bad, it's just she knew them as people. And you get to watch her develop this appreciation for the here and now. And kind of she meets people that she knew who were children, and they are now ancient and old. And she is coming to grips with human mortality. And I feel that her character, and I'm looking forward to the next season.
It's not finished. Okay.
It's unfinished. The first season is done, and they even still, I hope they don't do it. You could end it at the first season. You easily could. It's a beautiful story. They did a fantastic job.
Can you put
writing
the
it.
name into the voice chat? Because
100%.
she can avoid here. That sounds like a
She develops it. So you have, let's say, with her entire background, she spends, I think it's a few centuries learning everything that she knew before the adventure. Then the heroes find her because they've heard this other story. But she has been so disconnected from the world that she doesn't care about the world. And it's not disdain. It's just, hey, I live a long time. I don't need any connections. It's not who I am. But then she starts to become connected, and she kind of doesn't at first get this concept of everyone dies. In the first episode, they're all watching fireworks in a celebration. And she says, I believe it's something along the lines of, let's meet back here in 50 years. She says it like it's nothing. Like, I'm going to be busy. I'll be back in 50 years and we'll do this again. And everyone looks at her and just laughs. Goes, sure.
It's like a lot of us are going to be dead in 50 years.
And one very important person is barely alive, and she is there for them when they die. That is the first episode. So she has to face human mortality and kind of realize, hey, for me, 50 years was nothing. That was, a week. I have no need for that for 50 years. But this poor human, this man that loved her, waited for 50 years and finally got to see her before he died. The only reason he stayed alive for 50 years was he wanted to see her again.
Damn.
And then he dies. Welcome to episode 1. And then you have another 12 after that. And it gets
Okay.
better.
I might have to check this anime out.
Yes. The manga is great. The anime is great. Number 1, the anime, beautiful music. I judge a show by music a lot. They've done a fantastic. If you can have
Welcome
great
to the
voice
club.
actors, you can have a great story, but then if you come in with this music and go, "Ah, da, 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 da," I will stop watching. Frieren is a anime that I will solidly place in my top 3 personally for one very core reason, and here's the top scoring. If I will not skip the intro, it is automatically in the top 3. That's how
Yeah.
good the song. That's how good the music
I mean,
is.
I don't skip intros anyways, but
I mean, I started watching Dan a little bit simply because the intro.
Oh, the song is great. That's my
Well, we are
ringtone now.
watching that, but not Daima SMH. How dare you?
Sorry. Again, I'm just a little burned out on Dragon Ball, Nate.
But
Man,
Shane, the literally the best of
I
the
know,
best
but
character.
I grew up on Dragon Ball. You have to understand. I watched
Okay,
it.
I know.
I
But
watched the OG
anyways, I
Dragon Ball
am.
and Dragon Ball Z.
Anyways,
And
I
I
am kind of
watched
torn
Luncheon.
if I read the manga or watch the anime. Actually, fuck it, I'll do both. I
Oh,
will
yes,
do
definitely.
both. I will read the manga first and then watch the anime.
It's drawn beautifully. It's
Okay.
drawn so beautifully. The penmanship is fantastic. The
I will
story is
say that about how
amazing.
Toyotaro, he replicates Toriyama, but he also kind of improves on him a little bit.
That shows a love, I would say. I don't think it's one-upmanship when they took over.
Yeah.
It's a love for the series itself, the world that was there, the characters that are within it, and a true deep understanding of what drove all those individual characters.
Right.
So if you're going to hand the reins off to somebody, or if someone is going to willingly pick up the reins and you're the studio or the production company or the publisher, that's one of the most important things. That shows me they weren't in it for the money. They wanted an author. They wanted a mangaka that was not going to just do it for a paycheck.
Yeah. I'll admit that much. But I guess we got off the beaten track when it came to time.
No.
Yeah, a little.
No. To rope it back in, Frieren, I think, does it does show time in its many forms. So you can see how time affects the world around her. You can see how time does not affect her as an elf. And you can see just the disparity and the disconnect between the long-lived races and the short-lived races and the world. But at the same time, you can also see how a story changes over time. So you get the flashbacks for her, where she'll remember snippets because it's not important to her, of things that happened in villages and how the heroes helped. And the village has this legend of what the heroes did. And as she's listening, she'll have a flashback and go, yeah, that's not what I remember.
Speaking of like Heroes in Time, another series that's interesting and now of course everyone is confused by its timeline are the Zelda games.
Oh my god.
Yeah. How you have like 3 separate timelines where it's like, okay, this is where Link actually saves the day, this is where he doesn't, this is where he kind of does, but then things go to shit afterwards. It's a mess. And they just
I thought at this point Link was just the villain.
why? How's he the? Well, okay, I've never heard this before. You gotta tell me this.
If he was not the villain, why is he constantly chasing this poor woman down?
He's
there's
rescuing her. He's not.
there's
hurting her.
sure. I've heard the same thing in police reports, or when
So
someone
what?
files a restraining order. Like, oh, I'm
So
just
what?
there
Are we
to
gonna get the
protect
reveal
them.
that
I'm there to protect her. I'm there to keep an eye on them. I'm there to keep them safe. No, you psycho. Stay away. You
So are
are
we gonna
no
get the reveal
contact.
that Ganondorf was the hero the whole time?
I'm waiting for it. I'm really waiting for it where Ganondorf is just really like, hey, it's cool. You got this crazy stalker that goes around smashing everyone's pots and other kitchenware.
For their money?
He- and he dresses like extremely eccentrically. Let's not judge. We listen, we don't judge. But listen, they never gave you the restraining order. I'm so sorry, babe. It's cool. He's also never made a move on her other than keeps her in the dungeon, or I would say the most secure part of his estate. And she has chained herself to the wall so that Link cannot rip her out of the castle. Because I'm sorry, if my stalker came after me, I would chain myself to a wall too, just to not go into the white van.
I mean, that is what. You had something to say, Andy? But I guess is that just something you didn't think of it that way either?
Andy's on my side. I have Andy's on my side by default.
Bruh. But no, that's an interesting fan theory. How Link is actually the villain. Like there's another Nintendo fan theory where Mario is a sociopathic monster because of how he treats everyone in the Mario sports games.
I mean, he eats mushrooms to get powers, but there's the Mushroom Kingdom. So how do we know he's not eating the right mushroom?
Yeah, he could be eating baby toads. Yeah. But Andy, what were you saying? Andy, did you have something you were trying to say? Oh, okay. So let's see. What other things can we talk about when it comes to time?
I am currently looking at the oldest organisms on Earth, and there is a fungus, like a sea fungus, a sea sponge, that can approximately reach 15,000 years.
That is crazy.
Sponge.
Like,
what are those other water bears? Aren't water bears?
Tardigrades. Yeah,
tardigrades are
Tardigrades,
like nigh indestructible, but I don't know if they can
because they also live in volcanoes. I don't know if they're prehistoric though.
Yeah.
No, but I'm not looking at like prehistoric. I mean that it was
Wait,
born or born like
tardigrades?
15,000 years and it's still living.
Huh?
Right.
Wow.
That is not that it it popped out 15,000 years ago, then died, and then its son took over or something. It's still alive.
If the fungus
Yeah.
could walk.
I mean, fungi and other and yeah, fungi. That they are pretty creepy in a way, in an awesome way. But
fungi are weird living organisms. They really are. They operate so strangely.
Grow old.
Man, I could go off on fungus. I learned a lot about fungus and moss when I was thrown into a survival course, and Lord.
So you had to learn which ones you could eat and which ones you couldn't.
Yeah, well, there is a fungus in the northwest hemisphere, or the northwest areas of the United States, very predominantly. It usually grows on hardwood trees, like in more moist climates. So you're thinking this is a temperate moss. So you could also find this, say, Europe, like Eastern Europe, things like that. And it has the same medicinal properties as penicillin. I forget what it's called, but I know what it smells like. It's almost minty. So if you basically rub it very softly, and it smells like mint, you can peel this as a solid thing so you retain the growing structure that was attached to the base of the tree. Then you wash it, clean it. You can rub it together into a paste. And if you have an open wound, it has the same medicinal properties as penicillin.
Interesting.
Mhm. Also, I found like I guess natural tardigrade lifespan is like 2.5 years. Years
Yeah.
maybe.
It?
Yeah, but again, they can, they can
Hibernate and
turn themselves. They can hibernate. They can like make a little. I don't know how their little survival capsule is called, but yeah, they can make that.
We need a
And yeah,
tardigrade anime in the style of Attack on Titan.
right. Um, it is interesting. There is this. It's just interesting how like fungi and like plants can live, hundreds of years easily. But of course,
yeah.
like it's kind of amazing how the only like living boned organism that is close to that age is like this one Greenland shark that's like 400 years old.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it's called, but yeah, they used to think that. But isn't that the same shark they thought was extinct?
Yeah, they thought this
Yeah.
whole species was extinct, but it turns
Mhm.
out, yeah, they're still alive. And there was this other shark found off the coast of Japan. It died pretty quickly, but it was based on a species that everyone thought was
Based on
extinct for
what?
millions.
Oh, not the
Well, so it's part
coelacanth.
of a species that everyone thought was extinct for millions of years. I believe it was like this sort of like almost eel shark. What was it called? Hang on, I'm looking
Oh.
that up.
Mhm.
Because Japan, they also caught the first coelacanth.
Right. And turns
Now,
out
and now we
coelacanth.
could
Yeah,
just
it turns
kind of
out
accept that
coelacanths
the
are actually
coelacanth
alive
is
and
still
well.
around. Yeah, now we just kind of accept it. That was in the 90s or the early thousands they caught one. But of course,
Mhm.
Japan's going to catch all the sea creatures because they have one of the biggest fishing industries in the world.
Mhm.
That's nutty that there's a eel shark like that, though.
Okay, the shark that they found was the frilled shark. And
Oh,
yeah, it turns out like everyone thought frilled sharks were like completely extinct. And it turns out, I guess, in Japan there were a few that were actually still alive.
Oh my, that looks so derpy.
what
What,
the
the frilled
Japanese
shark?
fishermen? If these
Oh, the
zoologists
French.
if these zoologists had actually just gone to the fishermen and said, "Hey, have you ever seen one of these?" and they just do a picture, they'd just be like, "Hi, hi, yeah, we catch them all the time."
What does it eat with the teeth like that? Dude, what do you eat?
Oh my god, I'm looking at it. It doesn't even look like it could exist.
So derpy.
Oh my god,
It is kind of derpy looking.
it
What do
looks
you
like prey.
eat?
In fact, yeah, let's get a picture of the frilled shark
Oh my gosh.
for the viewers. Yeah, this
It's
is
just
putting in other pictures or other.
Come on.
Since it's an animal, let's put it in show me your animals.
Span fruit.
look what I caught new goldfish. What this?
Yeah. But yeah,
What
its
the
teeth
heck?
structure is very, very interesting.
Is it just a whole? Is it
Yeah, it's just-
clusters of small teeth? Is that what that
Yeah,
is?
it looks like that. And I'm trying to. Okay, I can.
It looks like it just has a bunch of mini cactuses in its mouth.
Yeah. Does it
Huh.
like just eat like small fish?
It looks like it. It
Or-
looks like the whole point is that the teeth are meant to like grab onto fish and
Mm.
basically kill them in a few bites.
Or
Probably
just
just
like
asks the
maybe
prey
with
really nicely.
with the direction, it's like so the prey like doesn't slip out of the mouth, so it can just like
Pretty much, yeah.
Or with that face, it just goes, "Hello, friend. I'm hungry. Are you almost dead? I'll wait." And then it just eats the corpse.
Right?
Something else I just learned recently about sharks. Did you know lemon sharks will form emotional bonds with divers?
That I didn't know.
Yeah, they will. So lemon
Like,
sharks and apparently
never.
tiger sharks will recognize individual humans and will form
Huh.
emotional bonds with them. So I'm not willing to test it with a tiger shark, but lemon shark, maybe.
Mm.
Lemon sharks can't exactly hurt you.
No, they look like
But
puppies.
I mean, like, if they wanted to, they could, but again,
True.
like,
But growing up in Florida, one of the first things we learned was 90% of shark attacks are accidental.
yeah. But again, like, if you were like, bothering the
Oh,
shark,
shit,
then
bad
of course
boy.
it could like,
Oh, hello. Howdy.
hello,
Welcome to the
person.
Hey, bad boy.
podcast.
We're actually doing our luncheon right now. If you want to join in on it sometimes,
It's
you're more
called
than
the
welcome.
Idiot Podcast. Get it right? The Idiots Podcast. Get it right? Yeah, we don't have like a separate like podcast recording voice chat because like we don't need to.
Um, yeah.
You said
You're good.
Come on.
But yeah, you're good hopping in here whenever you want, man. If you ever want to join these luncheons, just let me know. I can always use more co-hosts and everything. Okay. Yeah.
But
Thanks for
yeah,
hopping in. And also stream this afternoon if you can catch it. All right. Hey. That boy's a good dude.
Very
But
good peoples.
we're reaching that like 45-minute mark, so we'll go ahead and do closing thoughts and bring it back to the topic when it comes to time. Funny how I brought up time to bring up time. But it's interesting how like our perception of time can kind of change as we get older, and at the same time, it really also depends on what we're doing. Because as they say, time flies when you're having fun. And it really does. It's just like you start the day off doing something, and before you know it, you're looking at the sun setting. And you're like, where did my afternoon go? Did I really spend 4 hours doing this one thing?
especially in winter, yeah.
Winter
When the
and
sun
even summer.
goes like sooner.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
well.
like you look at the position of the sun, and then you look at your phone, and you're like, holy shit, did I really spend 4 hours doing this one thing?
Hmm.
It's kind of interesting. And you really just kind of have to, I don't know. You don't want to monitor time, but at the same time, you do cherish, how many rotations you got on this earth because you only have so many. But Rabid, we'll go with your closing thoughts first.
I think in life, I couldn't agree more. I was hate to bring out the personal laundry. Early on, especially when I was younger, and I first joined up, I had zero appreciation for my time at all. I had that mindset of like, yeah, it's okay. I'm not going to be older than 22, 23. I didn't expect to get into my 30s, period, because of what I was doing professionally. So I just lived in the moment and didn't have an appreciation for what was before and then what was to come. So ironically, it was all the way back then when I'm, running around in the deserts of Afghanistan, I started to see a lot of things that survived the passage of time. These ruins from the time of Alexander the Great that he built there in Paktika. So that kind of opened my eyes, I guess, to how precious that time is and how long things can remain. As a writer, time is, I think, one of the most underused tools now, especially when you look at things like fiction. I can't tell you how many books that are being released in the past, I would say the last 10 years. There's a distinct lack of how time is affecting things. And I hate to bring it up, but even when you read the Game of Thrones series, there's a few times when you look at this and go, hang on a second, the timelines aren't quite clear. So unless you're a major, major, major Game of Thrones nerd and you can dissect it, then you're not really going to understand the timeline because it's not really all that laid out for you unless it's something in reference to the history. So time is a tool for a writer. I think it's great. And for shows that are able to execute time and show time as an effective tool, a weapon, a curse, a plot point, that is something that can add a lot of breadth to a story.
Yeah, you really can. Nate, your closing thoughts?
Mine. Well, something that I want to like, add, I guess, is that because well, I think I can say that I'm like neurodivergent, most likely, and because of that, I also like have. Okay, the severity of my time blindness is a thing to discuss, but yeah, I I struggle to determine like how long a thing will take, and just yeah, and sometimes it feels like time is going too fast, and I'm just like no, slow down, no, and just like that.
Right.
And and at that time it feels like that even like the time is flowing like away from me, like I'm no longer like part of the main time flow, and I'm just like lagging behind, like swirling in a not a tide pool, but some other water vocabulary that I'm forgetting. Anyways, that's the more negative stuff. And but also, I guess the more positive stuff, that when I'm waiting for something or someone, I just like I don't mind waiting at all, because yeah, just like again, I just don't like perceive that at all. I'm just like, eh. And often I can keep myself like distracted enough just with my thoughts,
Right.
and it's like nothing.
Okay. So, Andy, your closing thoughts about time? Yeah, it really is. But anything else on that? Okay. Well, then I guess probably next week's topic on gatekeeped fandoms and everything would probably be
Ooh.
more up your alley, huh?
Mm-hmm. Spoilers for next week, Pebbles, who are listening to this.
Yeah, spoilers for next week. That is next week's topic. But we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. My food's going to digest in a little bit here. And once it does, I'm going to take my boy for his RUNNOFT. His ears perked up when I said that, and his eyes went.
They're learning.
Wait,
Yeah, he's-
well, what did you said?
RUNNOFT, because if I say the first part in full as a word, he quickly recognizes it. So you have to
I can't spell. What are you saying?
RUN.
It's a pretty
What?
vast topic.
RUN.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And the second part?
way.
I'm gonna be honest, not really.
Because if I say run, actually, I think we've said RUNNOFT enough times to where he recognizes that instead of run.
What?
Yep.
What's the second part again?
Yeah, probably.
OFFT.
What? There's
Yes.
there's nothing at the.
Yeah.
There's nothing. What?
Oh,
Oft,
it's
like
What?
I think I can explain
There's
it probably
nothing
better.
after the double F. What?
Nate, it is Southern slang for run off. Southern people deep in the South say run off.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
I understand now.
Okay, but we'll go
It's like
ahead and wrap it up. We'll go ahead and wrap it up here. We'll
Stupid can be.
catch you guys next week.
Look, sometimes okay, this is the time I will interact with you. Anyways, this is sometimes I need a thing explained 50 times before I get it. Sometimes I am that dumb. I have embraced it. It's unfortunate, but it is the reality.
I have moved out of the South and I now live in the North. I will translate any Southern that comes this way.
Thank you, Rabbit.
I am the
Or
Daywalker.
Squirrel. Thank you. Of
But
course.
sometimes
no.
I'm that way myself. So not to worry, you're not alone in that, Nate.
But it's endearing when you do.
Oh.
But let's see. Nate, did you have your closer?
Well, yes. And
Did you make
it's
a new closer?
goodbye, Pebbles across all platforms. Duh. This has been the Idiots Podcast.
All right. Let's go ahead and close out Craigbot. And stopping.